G'day folks, and welcome back to Stringybark Podcast, the Bushwackers podcast series. Got Dobe Newton here.
Hello Rog, how are you?
I'm good, Dobe, I'm good.
Well, and I'm excited because this third of our very, very popular podcast series...
and hello to all the 7 people listening.
Yeah. This one introduces your entry into the band. Yeah.
That's right, yes. What a saga that was. Yeah. Well, I'd always loved the Bushwackers and went to see them first in 1972 or something before you joined.
Yes.
When Bert Karnoff, good old Bert, I used to play hockey with. He was a goalkeeper and very good. And all that goalkeeping suited him perfectly for the job on the lagerphone.
Yes, but he decided, very wisely, that there wasn't a career in it. So they were looking for
Smart man.
They were looking for another patsy, and so they grabbed me, and I went, oh yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Yes.
And here we both are.
My God, all these years later.
Decades later.
Yes, indeed. Dobe, there's a fascinating story about how you got to join the band and driving across the Nullarbor and all that sort of stuff. And do you want to tell that? Because I thought I heard that one night when we were doing a concert, and I thought, I've never heard you do that. But
okay. So the story was that I was at university in Sydney, where I lived, at a New Year's Eve party.
Oh, yes.
I met a very bewitching young woman. It was just after midnight, and people had sort of made their moves, right? And so there was this one very attractive woman, and there was me and a New Zealand shearer. And we both thought to ourselves, oh dear, the night's getting on, we better do something about this. So we both had a go, and I ended up with the prize. Now,
indeed.
Little did I realise that the next day I would discover that she was only visiting in Sydney from Perth, where she lived.
Ouch.
Yes, exactly. And at that time, that coincided with a national postal strike in Australia, which lasted for nearly 6 months.
Wow.
And in those days, as students and relatively poor people, that was the way that you communicated with the written word. And so we were out of touch for a long time. When the strike broke, the mailman sort of delivered a bag of letters. So there were dozens and dozens and dozens, and there would have been on the other end too. But anyway, so I decided that I would follow my heart and go to Perth.
I was going to say, you must have been very taken to have written all those letters and
Oh,
hung
God.
in for 6 months
Oh,
like that.
no, absolutely. Oh, look, I recognised a soulmate. So I talked to my parents and I said, look, in order to pursue my studies, I need to enrol in the University of Western Australia, where there's a professor who is the only person who could supervise my further studies. Now, years later, my mother told me that they knew at the time that was complete bullshit, but at the time, they said that was okay. So off I went to Perth. Now, I was a pretty average drummer in a high school and university band, and we played blues and soul and stuff, but I obviously couldn't take the drums to Perth. So off I went to Perth, enrolled in the University of Western Australia. I was introduced to a bunch of Irish chaps who were playing in the folk scene in Perth.
Right. Just
Now-
one sec. You've obviously rekindled with your love of the letters.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. So in those days, there were a huge number of Irish immigrants who'd come to Western Australia for the mining boom. Right? So there was a lot of money. So this is the days when, if you bought a share in Poseidon Nickel for 40 cents, 6 months later it was worth $400.
Wow.
Now people can do the maths. So in Perth in those days there were a whole lot of people who went to work one day having bought a bunch of cheap shares, and all of a sudden they went, I'm rich, I can retire.
Wow.
So there are all these people, and in those days travelling on the bus in Perth, all anybody was talking about was the mining boom, right? It was the story. Anyway, so there were all these Irish folks who'd come over to work in the mines and on various jobs for which they were usually totally unqualified.
Yes.
But, so all these mates I met over there were doing tiling and roofing and all sorts of, and carpentry, all sorts of jobs that they had only minimal skills for.
Right.
But there was such a shortage of workers that people paid them an enormous amount of money. So there was a gig in Perth called Mulligan's in Milligan Street, and I went to a folk club with Sal, my future wife, and met all these Irish folks, and they said, hey, listen, one of our members has just left the band. You like folk music and you can play a bit. Would you like to join? And I said, well, listen, I was a drummer, so I don't know what I'd do. And they said, well, the person who's just left used to play the lagerphone. And I said, what's a lagerphone? And they went, yes, you know what a lagerphone is. They said, look, if you're a drummer, all you got to do is basically keep time and embellish the rhythmic parts.
Right.
And also, here's a tin whistle. And as a lad in primary school, I was in the fife and drum band. So I had a sort of, rudimentary grasp at that. And they said, here, do this. So anyway, we started playing, and it was really the basic Irish, Scots, and a few English folk repertoire. But the amazing thing was that Milligan's in Mulligan Street was frequented by all these miners from the work sites scattered throughout the regional areas of Western Australia. And they came down on their, so it was 2 weeks on, 6 days off. So by the time they arrived at Mulligan's, they had pockets full of money. I mean, literally. And they would come up to the band and they would go, I want you to play such and such a song. And we've gone, we've just done that in the last set. And they'd go, here's $100, play it again. And it's probably the most money I've ever earned.
Yeah.
But, so I did that for ages, but sorry, this is a very long story. So this is a very long story, and I'll attempt to abbreviate it a bit. So during this time, we got approached by P&O cruises. And so in those days, there were guest performers on P&O cruises. Now, you didn't get paid. You actually got...
So nothing's changed.
you got a free cruise.
Right.
So we packed up our combi van in Perth, and the four of us, and all the instruments and gear, drove across the Nullarbor to Sydney, where we got on the ship, and off we went for 10 or so days around the Pacific. Now, the good news for us is that we were designated as the cabaret band, which meant that we did sort of guest spots around the ship of an hour's duration, whereas the poor old pop or rock bands played for 4 or 5 hours every night, and were often ready to go back to bed when the captain or the first mate would come off duty and go, "Oh, you can't finish now."
Right.
And on they'd go.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, so we had a really, really good time, but the thing that we hadn't expected or worked out was that eventually somebody would catch up with us, because we had staff discount drinks. And so after we'd finished our performance, there'd be a whole mob of people sitting around, and we'd go, "Oh, it's our shout. We're on a staff discount." So after the 10 days, we were sailing back into Sydney Harbour, and an announcement came over the PA saying, "Would the following passengers report to the purser's office?" and it was us, the boys in the band. And so we went down to the purser's office, and he said, "All right, lads, there's a bill to pay." And we went, "Oh yeah, we had a few drinks on the trip, you know." And he went, "Here's the bill. It's X million dollars." Or that's what it seemed like at the time. And we went, "Oh, that can't possibly be right." And then he pointed to this huge pile of chits and said, "Are they your signatures on those?" And we looked at them and went, "Oh, yeah." So basically there was a frantic collection of money. So we got off the boat with basically nothing.
Right.
And we went, "How are we going to get back to Perth?" Right?
Across the Nullarbor.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long trip.
God.
And so we thought, I know, let's get in touch with the folk people at the Sydney Folk Club and see if we can do a show there.
Now, this is the Ranting Lads, isn't it?
No. Yes, it is. Sorry,
Yes,
it is.
yes.
It's called the Ranting Lads.
Right.
And let's see if we can actually get enough money to pay for petrol to get home.
Right.
And so we did a show. We raised some money, and somebody said, "Oh, listen, while you're over on the East Coast, you should go down to Melbourne, because there's a really terrific folk scene down there." And it's centred around what was originally a jazz club run by Frank Trainer, who's a legend of
Trainer's,
Australian jazz. But he'd started to introduce some folk acts, including a person who'll come up in a later podcast called Trevor Lucas.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so anyway, so we decided to drive down to Melbourne and to do a gig at Frank Trainer's. And on the way to Melbourne, the head cracked.
Of the car?
Yes.
Right.
So the engine was basically destroyed. And so not only we had enough money to buy petrol, but we didn't have a car that was operable. So somebody said, "Well, while you're in Melbourne, why don't you do another benefit concert to try and get a new engine to get you back to Perth?" So we got in touch with the folks around Trainers and the Port Phillip Folk Club and put out the word and said, "Look, would you please come along and play at a gig and help us get back to Perth?" And one of the bands who put their hand up to play was a recently formed band called the Bushwackers.
Ah, I see.
And so we played, they played, we got on really well, and fortunately we raised enough money to put a new engine in, and we got back to Perth. So
now, can I ask,
yes.
just returning to the romance of the story?
Oh, yes.
Did you take Sal on this giant trip with the boat and the cars and the band and the...
Absolutely not.
Oh, right.
No, because...
She would have been terribly impressed with your career
because
choices.
by this stage, she's a working teacher.
Right, okay.
Okay, so she's actually got a proper job.
Thank the Lord.
Which in the forthcoming years is the only reason I get to indulge my passion for this. Without her support, I couldn't possibly be here.
Yes, I hope you're listening, Sal.
Yeah. But, okay, so back we go to Perth. And you've mentioned Bert Karnoff,
Yep.
who was the Bushwackers lagerphone player at the time of that benefit gig. Mm-hmm. So a couple of months after we get back to Perth, I get a phone call from the Bushwackers saying, hey, listen, mate, our lagerphone player's leaving. Would you like to join the band? And I go, oh, wow, I'd love to join the band. So Sal and I have the conversation. And she says to me, now listen, you're halfway through your teaching diploma. If you finish the teaching diploma, I'll follow you to Perth.
To Melbourne.
I'm sorry, to Melbourne. But you've got to finish it, right? And I go, oh, I don't think they'll ever ask again, but yeah, I get it. And so I go, yes, okay. So I do that. And towards the end of it, I get another phone call saying, all right, the offer still stands. What do you reckon? And I go, yes. And I say to Sal, hey, listen, you said. And she went, yeah, I did. And like most West Australians, they're not all that happy to leave home. But she said she would, and so we moved to Melbourne.
Ah, and did you get your diploma? Did you finish?
Oh, yeah.
Your diploma? Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, sure. So I'm certified up. But as I said to people, sometimes you think you've done something really terrific, and then you think, oh, I'm not sure I've made the right decision, because our first gig was somewhere up north, like Echuca or Euroa, a few hours out of Melbourne.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And we had the band had a combi van and a couple of private vehicles. And so here I am. It's my first official Bushwackers gig. I am very, very excited. And then nobody turns up, right? And I eventually managed to contact people and go, what's going on, guys? They said, oh, sorry, I thought Dave was picking you up, and he thought Jan was picking you up, and he thought... And I went, wow, I've come all this way. I've changed my life. More importantly, I've taken my wife away from home, and here we are. And you forget about me for the first gig? Holy shit. So it wasn't all that auspicious.
Did you get there in the end, though?
No, for that gig?
No.
No.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Jeez.
I was sitting there at home with a lagerphone in hand, ready to go, but it never happened.
Oh, my God. Sitting around with a lagerphone in your hand.
Yeah.
Terrible, Dave. Wow. But things improved, I'm assuming.
Well, the good news is that my dear wife, Sal, and I have endured all those decades, and we have celebrated 55 years of marriage.
She's a saint.
She's more than that.
Yeah. Wow, Dad, that's an amazing saga, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, and then I joined. This was supposed to be about me, but that's all right. No, it's all good. No, it's totally fine. That's a great story, I think, how the band started, and it's so just true of so many bands. God, we all did gigs where nobody turned up.
Oh no!
Mostly the audience, though. Not the actual band members.
So this is supposed to be a bit like truthful. This podcast, isn't it?
Oh yes, I suppose. Yes.
Well, no.
Yeah.
So on the cruise, going back to the cruise, all right.
Oh yes.
So those are the days of people taking substances. All right,
Surely not.
Not serious, heavy substances, but in this case, we're talking about some hash.
Oh yes.
Okay?
I remember hash.
Yeah, so we get onto the ship and we've got a bit of hash. Not a lot, but I secrete it in my sock. Mm-hmm. But then somebody has this idea that why don't we play a energetic game of deck quoits?
Right.
Which you do on a ship. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Ship.
everybody's been on a ship
Yeah.
before they had those slide things and all that.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Deck quoits is what you did. So we had this interesting game of deck quoits, all a bit hot and sweaty and tired at the end of it, and I suddenly realised that the block of hash has gone. And here we are facing 10 days at sea with nothing. And I go, oh, well, people aren't going to be happy with me. So we talked to a couple of people, a couple of the stewards
Yes.
on the ship, and they go, oh, not a problem, mate, because on that particular voyage, and I'm sure lots of voyages since, a lot of the crew came from Sri Lanka and Goa and the Philippines.
Right.
And so when we went down, as we did in the early days of the cruise, one of our appointments as the cabaret band was to do a gig for the crew.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we went down into the cruise quarters and we played some jolly songs and everything. And at the end of it, a few of them came up and said, that was terrific. How's it going? And I don't know what made me do it, but I said to one of them, look, we've had a bit of a loss on the ship. and he said to me, oh, that's not a problem. And so we went back to the cruise locker room and he opened up 4 or 5 lockers and they were just full of illegal substances. And so, yes, we lost a lot of money on the cruise, but by golly, we had a bloody good time.
And spent up big at the bar also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, Dobe. That's a very good story about the early days of the band. There may have been substances when I was touring with the band also.
I know.
There's not so much these days, really.
Well,
We're too old.
no. Our substances now come in little foil packs.
Do they?
You know, prescribed by...
prescribed by the doctor.
Yeah,
That's right, yes. Statins is about as heavy as we go these days.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Now, I think that's a pretty good explanation of some of the early days there, Dobe.
Sure.
I reckon we might leave it at that, and we'll return to the flying pieman saga a little later. But that was from the early days of the Bushwackers, and we haven't got any Ranting Lads records, have we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do? Oh,
We
my
do.
God.
The Ranting Lads, the only thing we did which was vaguely famous is that there's a quite mad farmer in WA who decided that he would establish an independent province.
Ah, yes.
Yes, and his name was Prince Leonard. That was his self-appointed name, of the Hutt River province.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know, somebody came to Mulligan's who said, "Hello, I'm Earl so-and-so." Right? He'd been officially designated as an Earl by Prince Leonard and Princess Shirley.
Jesus.
I mean, isn't that a wonderful name for a Princess Shirley?
Yes.
Eh?
Yes.
Very Australian. And he said to us, "We would like you to record and write a song about Hutt River Province." Now, for people who don't know, Prince Leonard, real name Leonard, was a wheat farmer in a marginal area of WA, and he wasn't thriving. So somehow he came up with this scheme about looking at the Australian Constitution and going, "I reckon you could establish an independent country within Australia." And I'm sure the legal opinion is no, but he went ahead and advertised. The Hutt River Province appointed himself and Princess Shirley as the rulers.
Princess Shirley.
And they opened a huge tourist store where there were stamps and belt buckles and any amount of merchandise.
Yes.
And tourist buses used to stop by all the time. So he made no money as an unsuccessful wheat farmer, but he made a shitload of money as Prince Leonard of Hutt River Province. Anyway, so we recorded the Ballad of Hutt River. And it was available in the shop, of course.
Yes.
But it never rose to incredible heights on the charts, which wouldn't surprise anybody. But so it's very interesting living in WA, I have to say.
Yes. And that record, is that around still? Have you got a sneaky copy back somewhere?
Yes, I imagine it is, but I'd rather that nobody heard it. It's pretty droll.
Did you write the song, or did someone?
Yes,
one of the lads?
yes,
we did. Oh.
We did. We wrote it.
Oh, great!
And
so it's not "I Am Australian" or anything like that.
No, it certainly isn't. And it's all about what a terrific bloke good old Prince Len is. And we were hoping. I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic if after we released this song, if he knighted us?
Yes, well,
How good would that be?
Well, he probably did, Dobe, and you probably didn't pay attention.
No, he didn't. Oh, he never came good. No, he was one of those dudes who promised the world and delivered nothing, really.
It's a bit
anyway,
like Hutt River.
Yeah. You know, it still exists.
Oh, really?
Well, in theory.
Right.
No, I mean...
Is he still alive?
No. He's passed it on to some other dreamer. and I'm not even sure if the tourists stop.
Perhaps he'll head off to Paraguay, but that's another story. And that's story for another day.
Oh, yes, indeedy. Anyway, sorry to take up the whole podcast.
Oh, that's okay, Dad. That's very interesting about hearing the early days of Dobe Newton, or as I like to call you, Sir Dobe Newton.
But I will promise to dig out a copy of the Ballad of Hutt River, just so
very good.
People can understand why I wouldn't want to share it.
And why it never got up on the chart.
Oh, yes, and that too.
Yes, okay.
See you, folks. Thank you for joining us for Stringybark number 3.
Yes.
And we'll see you for 4 shortly.
See you soon.
Thanks, Rog.